Welcome to another episode of Love Living Local 315. We are your hosts, Scott and Kelly Greats, and today we are joined by Adam Vanderhoof, founder of Oneida News and a passionate local storyteller using video to shine a light on the positive people, places, and businesses shaping Central New York. It's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure
Welcome,
right there, but
Adam.
you did a great job. Thank you.
No, I mean on you, not me.
Oh, no,
I've been reading for years. I'm good at that.
You have a great speaking voice for it.
Well, listen, man, I want to go back to the beginning, right? Good place to start. 2012. What sparked you to embark on this journey?
Yes, I have literally always loved storytelling. So I'll make it short. In high school, I got into doing plays. And there was something about being on stage and presenting in front of people that I loved it. It was so much fun. And then that carried me into college, and I had, I think, one of the first smartphones. And so I picked up a phone and I was like, I want to tell stories in college of just students. So I'd sit down like this, not as high quality, not as good of questions as you both, but I would just sit down and ask them questions. And then when I got out of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. No idea. And so stayed at home, lived with my parents, created a little green screen room in the basement, picked up some cheap cameras, and off I went creating stories. And still today, I love it as much as I did then as I did today.
Sure.
So you left for a while, though.
I did.
You went to D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Talk about that and talk about what brought you back.
Absolutely. So I went to D.C. Funny enough, I found my first software job because of Oneida News. So I was creating shows before then in my basement. And all of a sudden, a company out of D.C. said, you know, if you can talk like that in front of a camera, you can sell software. It's like, all right, great. And so I moved down to DC. I put the camera away and I worked for software and for a few years in DC. I got married during that time to my wife. And I was down there loving the corporate world, we'll call it. But there was always a drive to come back home for a lot of reasons. One, I wanted to be closer to family. But two, I love telling stories. I love the Oneida community area for that reason. And so when I came back home, it was something I had to make sure I picked back up.
We were in D.C. for 5 years, like right outside of D.C. And it was just hard to get to know people, and they don't have that sort of community, you know, where you know your neighbors and you.
Of course.
So, yeah, we can kind of relate to that
Such a
100%.
transient area,
Yeah.
and I still have PTSD from the traffic.
I was going to say, if you asked me
that's,
why I left, I would have given you that reason. It was also, when you think about it from an area like this, like what you had mentioned, like you know your neighbors there, you take on these big cities, DC, New York, LA, wherever it may be. It's a lot of areas where people come and go. They'll go in, they try to make their mark, they try to make that money really quick, and then they try to jump. So you really never build that community focus like you could here. And so bringing that community ask, a lot of people that live in this area, love it or hate it, have lived here forever and they're not leaving. And so when you talk about stories and you interview different groups, the beauty here is that they can go back probably to their parents or their great-grandparents or whomever to say, this is where we've been and this is where we're staying.
Yeah. Now, the generational piece is huge. It can be a pain in the butt. We all know the downside to that. But when I opened my business, I can't tell you how many people came in. They're like, now, which greats are you? And I'm like, oh, no. Because they'd go back, like you say, 2 generations and be telling stories about people I never even met. Probably still mad at me about certain things I did, but that's annoying. Oneida News. So that was the name in 2012.
Yes.
Okay. I want to dive into this. There's layers to this, but what made you choose that name, right? Did you want to be a news person, or, was that just... Talk about the word news.
Yeah.
It's changed through the years.
Oh, it certainly has.
Yeah.
So I always have, and I always still want to be a news reporter. So if anyone's watching out there that needs a news reporter, give me a call. I've always loved it. And kind of going back to that mention of like college, went back home. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but it was something I wanted to do where I was telling a story. And to me, one of the greatest ways to do that was to do it through video. I wasn't the greatest writer. And I thought newspapers even then, they're certainly not dead, but it was a harder industry to get into. And I mean, you think about it today, even it's so cheap to get into the world of telling stories with a camera because most people have a camera, 1 foot away from them at all times, which would be your phone. So the Oneida News name stuck. First of all, I thought it was a pretty cool name. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. And a great, great friend of mine, Spencer, and I, we decided, you know what? We're going to create a couple episodes where we're just going to go around and we're going to cover, how about, let's just do positive stories because there's so much negative news already. And so it was like this aha moment We were going to go around the Oneida community and just cover positive stories that maybe some of the big guys won't cover. And that's how it all started.
Okay.
I love that because every once in a while we will sit down with my mother who watches the news religiously. She was so mad when Lester got, finished. And it's all negativity until that last piece. They leave you with that last feel-good piece.
Yeah.
So I love that you are focused on positive community-driven stories. That's so awesome. Why is that important now more than ever? Same reason.
Yeah. Your audience watching right now, you already know the answer to that question. It is because there is so much negative news in the world today. And I don't understand why they cover it as much as they do. Truthfully, I don't. Because negative stories will impact the social media platforms you use or the TV that you watch in so much that I would say that there's people that are watching this show right now that have thought or have deleted a social media platform based solely on the negative news that continues to come from that platform. I firmly believe that.
Sure.
And so there's so much negativity going on in the world. At the same time, of course, if you want to find a negative story, you can find it. But if you want to go a layer deeper, like what you had mentioned, Scott, if you want to go a layer deeper, you can find an amazingly positive story right around the corner. And to me, it boggles my mind that people that are watching a show, they absolutely care more about a positive story. Maybe a negative story creates some clickbait. I would argue that a positive story will create even more clickbait. And you look at your show and the different social media platforms that you on, I would argue that the most highly clicked and liked things that you've ever done are from some of the most positive local stories that have ever happened in the area. And so regardless of whatever happens in the future and how many more seasons we do of Oneida News, it will always remain a positive show.
Awesome. Let's talk about the seasons, right? So obviously the news cycle 24/7, 365, which is also diluting the content. But, you do specific seasons, almost like a Netflix series, So talk about that approach and why you go about it that way.
Sure. First and foremost, I would say it's a lot of work to create a show. You both know that. And your producer behind there knows.
We outsource that.
Right.
Jay's amazing.
It's really easy for us.
He's arguing right now. It's very difficult. It's really hard. It's hard to create a meaningful show because you ultimately want to create something that your viewers are really going to enjoy. You would never create an episode if you didn't feel strongly that it was going to be a great episode. You just want to do it. And so when you're going into that whole process of creating, you have got to sit down and you've got to think to yourself, what's a story that I want to cover that's really important to me, but I also know it's going to be really important to my audience. And so once you know that aha story in that moment, it's like a blip in time. You don't have that much time because you can't wait too long because it might not be that important down the road. There's like this moment where you've got to go and capture it. So you go out, you go and cover that story, and you do it as best as you possibly can. And then there's this editing, and then there's this role of making sure that you get the PR out there, you do advertising for it. So there's like this huge process behind closed doors that go on to make sure that by the time that someone's watching a show, it's as great as you wanted it to be. And so going back to your question on the Netflix thing, it's a lot of work. This is something that I do certainly I don't make money doing Oneida News. I never will. I just want to, anything that we ever receive from, money, we just give away to our audience shows or our audience members. And so I want to make sure it's a great show. And because of that, it takes time and you can't do it every single week. I wish I could.
So the monetization piece, though, you say never, and that's awesome, right? If you plan on always giving away, but you've grown from probably like friends and family watching this to your last season had over 1 million views.
Right.
Right. So it's become a thing. No plans of ever monetizing?
No, not right now or anything in the future with Oneida News. Now, if Oneida News becomes something bigger, which is always in the back of my mind at least, then maybe. But with Oneida News, no. I think it's just such a unique show because we're such a hyper-local show that typically if people want to be on the show, I never charge for someone to be on the show, right? And you can understand that. But on top of that, if there's anything that they want to give away, I always say, make it a gift card and I'll just give it away. We talk about the 1 million views. The 1 million views is largely due to me giving away things as part of it, right? That's the hook. I want them to watch because I think it's a great show and there's some positive impact. But there's something about when you post something and say, hey, if you like and share this episode, you have a chance to win a $100 gift card to this restaurant. That's going to drive the viewership much higher because some people out there are just going to like and share it, not even watch. That's fine. But it's going to get the message out there farther and farther. So I will just continue to go that route. I think it works.
Cool.
That's awesome. So you've done 6 seasons, right?
That's right.
Okay. What stories from a season have really stuck with you? Do you have any favorites? Do you have any?
Sure. Yeah, and whenever this episode airs is certainly fine. But today's a meaningful day for me. It's a Veterans Day. My brother's a veteran, and we had a gentleman. We've actually had a few people on the show that were veterans that were plus 90 years old. And man, are they sharp still.
Yeah.
They still have it. They've got, they're sharp as a tack. And those stories always just they kind of humble me in a way. They also remind me of like what's most important out there. Like, do not get me wrong in the slightest. I love covering whether it's a food place or a business or a local star, whatever it is. I love that. But man, is it really powerful when you can sit down, you can talk to someone that served our country, that gave us the opportunity to do what we do today, and to never really have that fear in the back of our mind that we couldn't do it, right? They protect our amendments. So I find that incredibly powerful, and bringing those sort of people on the show and me talking and then being quiet, which is hard for me, but listening to what they have to say is incredible.
Yeah.
And the stories that they would have to share. So love the question. I would say it's going to be our veterans out there that have been on the show that just really meaningful to me.
Yeah, it's a great moment to have some perspective. You know, we've got 3 teenagers, 2 of which went off to college. One of us really struggled with the boys leaving for college. And, you know, I bring my wife back to, you know, there were our parents' generation, you know, one generation ago, not that long ago, you know, kids were graduating high school and going to Vietnam.
And they were drafted, yeah. Like
you know, at 18
choosing.
years old.
That was not their choice.
Right. And, you know, generation before that, World War II and Korea. And, you know, here we are stressing about our kids going to a private college 2 hours away. Right. You know, it's like, so, you know, talk about the ultimate courage and for many sacrifice, unfortunately. But yeah, great answer.
But a lot of young kids are opting for that. Like Connor, our son Connor, who's at college, has 3 really close friends of his that he
all went military.
That all went military, and I just, it's amazing.
Yeah,
that certainly is.
Yeah.
Yep.
How was the talk about the evolution, right? From where you started. We were talking before we recorded about how Kelly and I were literally at our kitchen island with a shared MacBook and Zoom interviewing people, and you know, now we're in beautiful downtown Utica here in the studio. But you know, talk about you mentioned a couple times in your parents' basement, and you know, how has that grown?
Yeah, and a beautiful studio it is for everyone. I can attest to that. It's amazing in here. So you mentioned kitchen table. It's really funny you say that because I mentioned Spencer, who was part of season 1. The show wouldn't never be where it is today without him. So I always have to make sure I give him just so much credit for that. We started at his parents' kitchen island. The first episode, if you ever go back and watch. And it started there, and then season 2 went into the basement of kind of creating a show. It's always funny. I think you both can relate, where if you actually watch back on your first episode, you kind of cringe a little bit. Because you're like, oh my gosh, why did I ask that? Or what mic was I using? Or like, there was no lighting in here. I could barely see myself. It's fun if you actually then look back, because sometimes people's favorite episodes are some of the first ones you ever did. Some of your viewers, I guarantee, could say, you know, my favorite one was Scott and Kelly was, you know, episode 3 they ever did, because it was very raw, and not saying it isn't today, but it was just so unpolished. And to me, I think that's how it always has to start. It starts at the kitchen table, like for you both, and it started at a kitchen table for me and in a basement because we love what we do. We don't go into this because we're saying we're going to become millionaires doing this. We do it because we love it. And when you love something, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but it's like when you love something, there's that twinkle in your eye that you know. It's like if your kids are all of a sudden going to something, you're like, I know as a mom or dad, like I know just how you talk to me about that one thing that you want to go into. That's it. And for me, that's video and for telling stories. And I just absolutely love it. So the evolution has gone from the basements to now being able to, you know, thank goodness from my 9 to 5, being able to have higher end equipment that allows it to look more professional and more polished, and the audio sounds great. And I think that's super important. But what remains the same from episode 1 all the way to now, whatever the episode is, season 7, is that going out there and covering those positive stories and having a real genuine love for it, that's never going to change.
So let's talk about the community of Oneida and how it's changed since when you started in 2012, and what stayed the same, like with the stories you're covering. Do you see a common theme of certain things that have stayed the same, and what's changed?
Yeah, I love that question as well. I think for the most part, it's hard for me to answer like for sure, because I think some people might say like, Adam, you're wrong here, you're right here. I don't really know. I don't think too much has changed. I think what has changed is, my approach and just my questionings that I ask, if that makes sense, where I think my first couple seasons, they were like softball questions. I mean, softball of all softball. Like, there was no meat on that question. But now I've gotten older and I hope more mature. And now my questions are a little bit deeper. And now I can understand a little bit more about what this person's actually going through, or why they do it, or why they get up at 5 a.m. to do a food truck 7 days a week. Like, why do you do it so much? And being able to go that farther route, what you're finding out is that there's this ultimate love that people have for their community, for their city, for what they do on a given day. And to me, I find that super powerful. And obviously I'm biased, but I think Oneida has some of the most charismatic and strong-willed people that just keep grinding no matter what into whatever they do. And I think this past season really covered that.
All right, let's see if we can get you in trouble here. The news is generally political, a lot of politics, right? And we, by choice, right, wrong, or indifferent, we try to avoid politics. And I'm not saying by any means all politicians are bad, or, like, it's not important to get involved in politics. It is. But when you talk about the positive stories you're trying to share, sometimes when we talk about things politically, people think we have an agenda or an angle, and then the haters and the negative, all the stuff we're trying to avoid starts coming out. So we just avoid politicians. You don't. So how do you juggle having, that positive mindset and wanting to highlight the positive stories while you're talking to politicians who have issues to discuss that people are going to be split on?
Yeah. So, and you're referring to like the city manager and the mayor of Oneida, which I've had on the show. I think if you look back from the first couple of seasons, there was really no politics of it all, if memory serves me correctly. This last season, I went a different approach where I wanted to. Always, always, always in that lens of positivity, though. Which, again, to your point, though, you could say, well, that's your opinion, Adam. That's like that's your point of view on things. I think I did a fairly good job at ensuring that the questions that I would ask and just the conversations that we would have, it really wasn't left, right. It had no political bias. It was just, asking the questions of, okay, the city of Oneida, what could we be expecting to be seeing? What could everyday people be expecting to enjoy? When they're talking about a splash pad. Okay, great. How does a splash pad actually happen in Oneida? Walk me through that process. Oh, well, there's a grant. Explain to me how a grant works. Okay, it's coming from the state of New York, and it's going to be coming in. Okay, awesome. Who has to pay for that? Who gets to enjoy it? Is it just Oneida? Is the outside area? So I guess where I'm going with this question is, when I have people like that on the show, I try my best to make it where it stays positive. I'm not hyping their ego. I'm not trying to set them up for a political campaign rerun, whatever you want to call it. I'm just trying to ask them simple questions that usually people won't ask them because they'll typically go after the mayor with more of that negative story, those negative questions, which, listen, the news, you can do whatever you want and you can ask the questions and the mayor's tough enough, I'm sure, to answer those questions. But for me, I want to go the questions that typically people aren't going to ask on a day-to-day and then leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I won't press too hard on saying, is this actually going to happen? Or, I'll say, all right, this is what you're sharing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely trying to highlight the things that they're doing that you're not going to see on those nasty commercials that bash against each other, because that's what we see during election time is everything they've done wrong, not what they've done right.
Of course.
So that's awesome. What common trait do you see among the people that are making a difference here? Like when you interview them, do you see a commonality between all of them?
Yeah, I mentioned like that, like spark in the eye, like you both have it, right? Certainly for this show, I can obviously tell in the 20 minutes or so that we've been on so far and beforehand. I think the people that I get to meet, similar thing, but in a completely different industry. And so obviously, you'll know there's no surprise here. A lot of the people that I have on my show are restaurants. And I think it's unique because of restaurants, because in my opinion, I worked in the restaurant industry. It was my first job. I was a dishwasher. Hated it, but I did it. And I knew I wasn't the restaurant guy after that. But the people that you have on the show that are in the restaurant specifically, you either have to love it, and I mean love it, or you are going to be out of a job very quickly. It is just a demanding, grinding job, especially if you're an owner of a restaurant. I think restaurants, keep me honest if you know. But I think restaurants are one of the hardest to actually stay afloat. Like I think I'll make up a stat, but I think it's more than 50% of restaurants like fail in the first year or two or something
That's
crazy
all
of
small
that nature.
businesses.
Yeah. All small business, but restaurants to me. So when I bring them on the show, and especially if they've been on for years now, or maybe they're just starting out, the energy and the excitement that they have for what they do is contagious. And I find that contagious for me, and the viewers that watch the show, I think also see the same thing. So bringing that energy on the show is just so much fun.
Or just the story behind the restaurant. A lot of times, like you can go into a restaurant, and if you're telling the story behind the person that started it or the dishes that are created there, so much more meaningful. It makes the experience so much better.
It certainly does. And a great example of that is we had one of the food trucks on, and what they did, speaking of Veterans Day, is that any first responder, it'd be free food. They would just go up any day. Any day. It wasn't like, like only on Veterans Day you can come up. No. Any day you can go up to the food truck, and if you are a first responder, if you're a veteran, free lunch. I was like, wait a minute. This is crazy to me. I remember I covered it live, and I was like, who else knows this? I'm like, yeah, like we let people know, but obviously we want more people to know. I'm like, this is incredible. This is a story that I wish like everyone should know about, that this one food truck is going the extra mile to be able to provide for people like that. So to me, it's super fun. Man, It is fun to go after it, like what you said, and go a layer deeper.
So my entrepreneurial brain is now like, hopefully that food truck, if they're listening, the move there is, we're not veterans, but asking patrons to
donate a meal.
Right, to pay for a meal for a veteran, because why should they carry the burden of, it's a great idea. So many people like us would love to support that.
Oh my God, I would love that. What good human wouldn't want to do that? Yeah.
All right, talk about Oneida specifically. So have you painted yourself into a corner with just Oneida? Like 13 years of doing this, like you must want to expand or need to expand. I'm sure you have at certain points, but talk about that focus on Oneida and where you go from there.
Yeah, it's the $1 million question of like, what next? So obviously, like I could keep covering Oneida stories until the cows come home. I think there's like a story, in the Oneida area that would be meaningful, that you would hopefully want to watch, and hopefully I cover it well enough to where it does justice by the person on the camera with me. Don't get me wrong there. But your question is, all right, where do you go from here? So I've thought, all right, well, if I call myself Oneida News, but I'm covering stories here in Utica, or if I'm going out to Syracuse, then you're really not Oneida News anymore. So like this overarching idea is, do I just become positive news instead of Oneida News? And I'm torn, because, you go bigger. That's exciting because you're going to hopefully reach more of an audience and you become, more popular, or whatever the term may be. You stay just in Oneida, you're going to become that guy that can go anywhere in the Oneida area, and you're just like, oh, I could go and cover this story because I'm here and I'm local. So I have no plans to change the name as of right now. I have no plans to really go outside of kind of my bubble that I'm in. But to your point, yes, do I cover stories that are in like the Canastota, like the surrounding Oneida? Yes. I get myself, you're right though, it almost like puts you in a corner in a way, because you're saying, well, if you cover the story in Canastota, like a barbecue joint in the Canastota area, why wouldn't you go 3 more miles west, and now you're starting to get inched that much closer into Syracuse? So it's a delicate balance, but for the foreseeable future, I want to continue to focus right in this area, because I find there's enough stories to cover, enough positive news to go around.
Here's a weird question from people who live in Frankfurt. Does Oneidians? What would you call yourself?
Yeah, I think so.
Oneida? People in Oneida.
Yeah.
Do they
Residents of Oneida
gravitate towards Syracuse or Utica? Because you're kind of right in the middle, right?
Yeah. I don't really know if like Oneida, if there's an actual one there. It depends. Like, I think there's benefits to both, certainly. But if you're going to be going out west, I mean, a lot of people that I know that are from the Oneida area, if they want to go and get, more, we'll call it high-end groceries, they'll go out because they want to go to Wegmans, right? We talk about how your son goes to Rochester, home of Wegmans. But you're going out to Syracuse, you're going to be going to the Wegmans. If you want to come out here to the east side, you got amazing restaurants. We're here close by to Ocean Blues. So, I think people go to both. They love both of these areas really well, but Oneida's in a sweet spot where we can kind of dabble into the both markets.
What are some good spots or good things to bring people to Oneida to visit there?
Great question. Yeah, I think, first of all, like people always go to places because there's food. I think that's what most people will always look at. venture to say that when people go to Google or whatever search engine they use, probably one of the highest searches is like food and then they type in the city that they're visiting because they want to go and have a great meal. So we've got you covered there. And some really great places that have just opened up, like JD and June's, which is the old Oneida Daily Dispatch building. Oh my gosh! Like, if you have a chance, it's remarkable what they've did to that location there. So obviously, food's going to be a huge driving point for you there. The summer area, we've got great golf courses in the area. Obviously, the Turning Stone Casino, which is really close by in the Verona area, but still, nonetheless, people that come to this area are certainly going to be going there. But I think there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of like older buildings in the area, like the Oneida Mansion House, I think is a great place. I had them on the show this past year, but depends on your age group or depends on what you're into. But I would say there's probably something for everyone, and you're going to enjoy it, whether it's just for the day or an overnight.
So how do people support the show?
How do people support the show? So, first of all, thank you to everyone that watches the show. Like, that's amazing. It's really, really cool to think back 13 years ago when we were doing a show, like what you had mentioned of like friends and family. That seriously was who watched the show. Like my grandma would be like, oh, that was, loved watching you on TV last night. I'm like, all right, I'll tell you the difference between TV and like an iPad, but that's for another day. So it's really fun just having just the local people on the show. You know, I'll have to humble myself really quickly. I mean, which is true. It's like the show is you know, more popular, but it's not national and it's not like, you know, anything insane. So let's you know, call it as it is. But over the years, it's become more and more popular. And so first of all, I love that people watch the show. I also love the people. I'd actually love to ask the question back to you all before we move on of, is one of the greatest feelings that you have is when you look back in the comments and you see the same people that always give you that positive reinforcement. How awesome is that?
Yeah. And I actually don't read the comments.
I read the comments. Scott doesn't read the comments. I'll read the comments, and we definitely have even like previous guests that have become huge supporters of the show and that are just religious watchers, and they share our content. And so it's so amazing to share.
Isn't it great?
An interview, and then you're like, this person has the same vision that I do, and I want to do nothing but support their vision as well as mine. So that collaboration is a huge piece.
Yeah, I'll double down on that. The community that we've created has really been the unintended benefit, I guess. We really just started with the same mission as you. We want to shine a spotlight on amazing people doing amazing things. People that normally wouldn't get the spotlight. But what's happening, to Kelly's point, is now a couple hundred guests as we built this community of kind of love and support and
it's too funny, Adam. When we started this, we literally started interviewing like friends of ours. It was like, will you do me a favor? Can you let Scott and I interview you over Zoom? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. Like they're like, what am I getting myself into?
Now we get like a dozen requests a week.
And now we have people that like want to be on the show and that we're picking and choosing.
And I don't know if it is for you, but it's still weird to me when I'm talking to someone and they make a reference to something a guest said or something we said on the show. Because honestly, I forget.
Of course.
I mean, we're just here having a conversation, right? It's weird that Jay's creeping in the corner with his video stuff, but I've tuned that out, and so it's just like a conversation. And then weeks later when it comes up, I'm like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, Adam.
Exactly.
It's super cool.
So you love the people that support the show almost as much as you do, if not more. Like those certain people that are just firm believers. So I can't thank them enough. And then obviously the businesses and the people that want to be on the show. Like what you had mentioned, sometimes like when you're starting out, it's hard. Like you're like grasping at straws. You're like, oh, would you want to come on the show? And they do it because they love you. That's why they did, like the early seasons would do it.
Yeah.
Now you guys are at a point where you've got 10 requests, like you had said, like a week. Like, how crazy that? And I think like, I'm not at the level. You guys are much higher. But I would say what's so crazy about this is, and I like for the people that are watching, I think like what it all kind of comes down to is this. Is you can really, it's like that old saying where they're like, just do whatever that you love and you'll figure out a way to make money at it. You guys have such a great story of that because you guys did something over Zoom and now look at where you guys are today, and you get to interview people all across this whole area, and it's shining light onto these stories, and you've been able to grow this entire show. And I guess whatever someone is motivated in doing, you really can do it. Yeah. Like you really, at the end of the day, can go out and go do whatever you want if you have that drive to go and do it. I don't care if you have $1 million. Someone donates you $1 million. If you don't have that absolute love to go and do something, that $1 million, you should just go and burn it.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to keep you warm for a little bit longer. But if you go into something that you absolutely love and you have no money in it in the beginning, I am sure when you guys were doing Zoom, you didn't have crazy money coming in and you're like, oh, let's go and do it. You did it because you loved it. And now the fruits of your labor are showing.
Well, it's too funny. That was one of the first questions I got from a previous coworker of mine, a teacher. She goes, well, Kelly, how do you make money? I go, we don't make money. We're not doing this to make money.
Yeah.
It's a passion project is what it is. And it's funny that you say that because my next question to you or thought was going to be, our children, our young creatives have the world at their fingertips with Google, with AI, with, anything. Our son,
video equipment,
our
audio
son
equipment.
decided he wanted to start taking photos. He literally watched YouTube videos over and over and over again on how to perfect his technique. What advice would you give to a young creative, other than just do it, like you just said, that wants to start, something in video or anything?
Yeah. I first of all love that. It was your son, you said?
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's
within
great.
months he monetized it.
And
He had kids from all different
he had kids
schools
from down
asking
south
to
do a highlight reel for him and a video, and he put
Unbelievable.
music to it. And I'm just like, Connor, how did you within a year and a half, he's become not a professional, but I think it's pretty awesome, the content that he creates. And it really is amazing that our young people can educate themselves on how to do anything.
So last year, I didn't have as strong as a feeling as I do now about, how savvy the next generation growing up is. Candidly, I was like, oh boy, we're in trouble. We're in trouble, guys. I don't know about this group. I went to a private high school. That's where I graduated in Oneida, Holy Cross. Shameless plug. And so I went back. This past year. I wanted to teach.
Yeah.
Just pro bono. Just wanted to teach public speaking and video. Found it fascinating. We had 10 or so kids in the class. I was worried, class 1. I was like, uh-oh, we got something here. Here, it was like, gives me chills thinking about it. From class 1, it was a 10 class, 10 lessons in the class. Over those 10-week span, what we were able to create at the end, these kids were grabbing their phones. They were able to shoot a beautiful interview or a video or promotion or whatever they wanted to create. They could edit it. They could overlay it with music in 10 weeks and get it out the door. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have something here. Am I saying that every person in the younger generation should go into video? Certainly not. But what I am saying is they have the tools that no other generation, even close, have today. Whether you're going to video or whatever the industry is, which is obviously the broader question of when kids are thinking in high school what they want to go do after, they're at an interesting path right now where they could be using AI to learn 20 times faster, candidly, in my opinion, than any class could if you want to learn really quickly on something like your son did with photography. So point being here is that I'm really optimistic on the generation that's growing up. What I saw in the video is incredible. And yes, they do have all the means. Goes back, though, to the point. You can have all the means, you can have all the tools, you can have that $1 million, like we had said. But if you don't absolutely love it, then don't go into it.
Yeah, the passion is a big piece of it.
I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole here, but anyone who thinks we're in trouble with the next generation has not spent time with the next generation.
Sure.
And I can make a strong case that what slows down the next generation is us. We're like, oh no, AI, no, don't do that. You got to figure it out on your own. No, there's a formula. And these kids are like, well, why? Because it's all right here, out of the box thinking and creativity and just passion. And the other thing that they have that we didn't is the willingness, for the most part, to work for free. Right? We were always like money, 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 money. And these kids understand that you've got to build a portfolio. You've got to create content. You got to show your worth before you start charging. And we're specific kind of to the content creation entrepreneurial space with this. But point being is, in your pocket, with your cell phone, you have access, our 14-year-old daughter does, to more information than Bill Clinton did when he was president. And that's just the access. The barriers have been removed and the playing field's been leveled. So I love that you went into the schools. I love getting into the schools. I'm always wowed by just how advanced and sophisticated these kids are.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty that we actually probably slow them down.
Well, what better way to build our community than help out our youth and hope that they stay here and stay local and help grow our community?
Absolutely
that's what we need.
Yeah. And maybe to close the circle on this part, couldn't agree more. We're in an interesting point right now where these kids, they grew up now with like side hustles and like side jobs in new ways. Like if you go back, probably like the side hustles back in the day were, I'm probably making it up, but like probably like
delivering newspapers,
That's what I did.
washing dishes,
That's exactly
right?
what I was
all
thinking of.
minimum wage type work.
But now they're in this like kind of more creator mentality where it's like, hey, I can photograph your wedding or your senior pictures. I can do it for you. You don't need to hire someone else to do it. I can do that and I can edit that, or I can help you build a website, which I think is probably one of the biggest things now.
Yep.
A few years ago, it was, spending crazy money to build it. Now you can do what's called vibe coding. I don't know everything about that, by the way, but it's called vibe coding, where you're using AI to build sites in minutes, and people are able to do that. But at the end of the day, you still need a conductor for the orchestra. And that conductor is the next generation. It's that person that's controlling it all to say, I have a vision. I'm going to use different technologies to get there, but I still have to oversee the whole process. That's what they are.
I think we could go on for hours, but we're at our. Have you found a certain time? Like, what's your sweet spot for
like, how
episode
long
time
are they?
before you lose people?
Yeah. So I think we probably passed that mark. But, so here's what I would say with video. And if it's okay, I'll just kind of talk to your audience for a second for people that are interested in the video space. So there's two ways to attract an audience. The first one is what we call like the hook, right? Which I think you guys do a phenomenal job at. Like you have shorts. Shorts are these quick 30-second highlight reels of like, what's this video going to be about? That's crucial because the day and age that we're in today, you've got all the different platforms. We all know what they are, but they are taking the attention span of us and minimizing it, which have pros and cons. The pros of that is that we're able to quickly decipher whether or not it's something that we want to watch probably in 5 seconds, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
So you got to have a really good hook. And so that's how you're going to draw people. However, if you know, though, like on YouTube, for example, creators now are doing two things. They do shorts, but then they do, we'll call them longs. I don't know what they call them, but it's the longer form like what we're doing today. It's people that you're saying, I'm going to hook you by that quick short. I'm going to draw you into now this longer one, but I'm going to ask compelling questions to our guest. I'm going to make it worth your time to actually go and invest in 40 minutes, whether you're in the car listening to this in your car or you're sitting on YouTube or whatever it may be. So I think there's two ways to do it. So to answer your question, I don't think there's like a specific like exact formula for it, but in my opinion, like there's two ways. Like you gotta hook, and then once you hook someone, you got to give them something worth watching for that
Content.
30, 45 minutes.
All right. Well, our rapid fires are worth watching.
Yes, those are fun.
Let's do it.
Okay. One local dish or drink you always recommend.
Oh, so let's go. I would go to JD and June's. I'd get their chicken parm. I think right now it's an amazing dish.
Okay.
We gotta check that place out.
Yeah,
I know we do. We've never been
We'll
there.
stop at the plaque. Best Central New York season.
Fall.
Between the two of them.
Fall. Yeah, fall.
The one that's between the two
I'm
of
saying
them.
fall, but we're in it right now and it's snowing out. But,
Yeah. What's always in your camera bag?
a microphone.
All right,
Always.
we're gonna give a call out here to who's someone that you want on the show that you haven't had on the show yet.
I want Steve from WKTV on my show.
Oh my god.
Oh, we can do that for you.
I want him on my show.
Okay.
All right.
He's my boyfriend.
Did you know this about us?
I know you've had him on your show.
Yeah, he's like our best friend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we travel,
really-
Steve on my
with
show.
him, and yeah.
Yep.
Okay. A central New York town or spot that deserves more attention.
Cheryl, New York.
I would have went Munnsville there. They've got the music, silence, or podcasting when you're editing your own
Silence.
content. Okay.
Silence. Yeah, I won't bore you on why.
One quote or mantra you live by.
Going back in on this episode is just do what you love and figure out a way to make money at it.
Very first piece or story you ever filmed. What was that?
Yes,
about?
it was Nikki Doodles and Oneida grand opening.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Adam Vanderhoof, founder of Oneida News, season 7 coming up soon. Do we have a release date?
We don't have a release date yet. We're already in the works though. So
Nice.
just like what you all do, you got to start getting some interviews already lined up,
Yeah.
and then you make that big announcement.
And we got to make the Steve McMurray connection.
All right, we can do that.
For better or worse, no promises.
That's okay.
You got to sign a few things before you do
Done. Whatever I have to sign, I'll sign it.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone.
All right.